Hello. What follows is a 6-part first-person recounting of the life of Tom Acker. Father Tom, at the time of this video, was 92, and the video was made in May of 2022. His life is a fascinating journey through several countries, including Nepal. Along the way, Father Tom Acker of the Society of Jesus has been president of 2 universities. He is a scientist with a doctorate in biology from Stanford University. He has been consulted by the highest levels of 2 governments. His outlook, competence, and attitude toward his tasks have earned him a lot of love and respect by many of the people who he's come in contact with. At every turn, though, from the earliest stage, as you'll see, he has been the problem child for many of his superiors. When we met, he was serving as a parish priest and busy saving a failing parish school, which he then revived and caused it to blossom where it had been on its last gasp. Toward the end of these videos, he calls me his friend. I am very proud of that designation. I should mention I'm not Catholic. My work involving sound and video systems brought me into contact with hundreds of pastors and priests and some imams and rabbis. I have met some outstanding people who have taken up the work that they see God has called them to, and Father Tom is such a person. Please enjoy with me the story of Father Tom Acker of the Jesuits. Welcome back. Father Tom is going to pick up the story when he returned from Nepal, which we have figured out was 1975. And so please enjoy our presentation from 1975.
Steve, thank you. Well, the last time we were together, I got my hair cut.
I didn't.
But anyway, I came back, and that time in Nepal was one of the key elements of my life because I lived with people of all different nationalities, different religious persuasions, different hopes and dreams in a very, very poor country. And it became clear that I didn't realize it fully then, but I was going to have to always work with people who were struggling. Although the next episode doesn't sound like that, but it was in one way. At the University of Detroit, when I was there, they had just put a new chairman in the biology department. And I said, I think I would like to try some more leadership roles like I had in Nepal. And so I applied for a job at John Carroll again, and also at the University of San Francisco, because I had lived out there doing my doctorate at Stanford. And they said, we could use you at University of San Francisco. So out I trooped there. Now the Jesuits have to approve this. I don't remember why they approved it, but they did. And I got out there. And shortly after I got there, I looked at the department. And one of the things about a scientist is you're always trying to say, how do I make it better than how I found it? And I looked at that department and I said, we can do better. The National Science Foundation, a government organization, put out an application for grants, which they called cause grants. And I don't remember what cause stands for. There were a very limited number of them, and I applied for one. And we got it. It was worth about $250,000 to $300,000, something like that. That was big money at that time. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, I was the project director. And I learned something. You had a department chair who was the head, but I had the money. And because I had the money, I had the power. And that's exactly what happened. People kept coming to me, could we do this? Could we do this? Could we do this? And I found out that if you have the wherewithal, you have, in a certain sense, power. Although money is not power, ideas are power. And so I was out there for 3 years with this cause grant, and we did a lot of things. We left the department much better than how I found it. But I said, I'd like to go overseas again. And so I applied for another Fulbright or another type of grant they were doing for Uruguay. And I thought I had it. I thought I had it listed. And, but Secretary Vance, I forget what he's secretary of, maybe he had made some goofballs on Uruguay, and the grant was turned down at the last moment. It was there, and they said, no, we don't want anyone coming in from Uruguay, from the United States. But then I went down to Honduras to learn language, Spanish. I thought, well, I'll go to Honduras then. Well, one thing I learned about myself, I'm a lousy linguist. I've had to learn 4 or 5 languages in my life, and I'm good at none of them. And I went down and tried to learn Spanish. Should be the easiest of all to learn. It didn't work well. And so I applied for another grant. I applied for another thing. The dean of St. Joseph's University came up, and I was down learning Spanish, and I had applied for it, and I got the call. We'd like you to come to St. Joseph's and be the dean of arts, science, and business. And I said, wow, I accepted the job. And then I said to myself, oh my heavens, I've accepted the job, but I haven't cleared this with my provincial yet.
Oops.
Big move. And so I called the provincial, and he said, you can't do that. I said, I'm not doing anything. I'm staying in the Jesuit order. I'm just moving from one Jesuit institution, San Francisco, to another one, Philadelphia. He said, you've got to have my permission. I said, well, give me your permission. And he said, well, okay. I don't want to embarrass you. I don't want to embarrass anyone on that. So why don't you do this? You go, but would you promise me one thing? If you ever decide to take the presidency of some place, I can see where you're trying to go maybe in time. Would you consult me first before you make a decision? I said, oh, no worry. I never want to be a president. Okay. I was there for 4 years. Philadelphia, very interesting city. Of course, it's Constitution of the United States, all these historical events that took place. But I found out one thing. Every person in Philadelphia is a baby lawyer. Law is very important to them, and law is risk-free. It's full of rules and regulations, and I'm a scientist. I love to explore, take risks, and experiment. But for 4 years, I stayed there as the dean, and I learned a great deal about administration. One thing I learned about administration is this: if you want to be an administrator, don't rule by your authority, rule by your influence. And so what you try to do is you influence people, and especially in Philadelphia, you don't tell them what to do. They won't do that. So
I think that's a great quote. Could you say it again? You don't rule by your authority, you rule by your influence.
yes, it is. That's true. People don't like to take orders. You encourage them to accept the ideas that you have. So you don't rule by authority, you rule by influence. You influence people, and they'll buy into what you say. And so you have to have an idea. So there I was there for 4 years. At the end of 4 years, the vice president, a nice guy, but he says, I don't think this is working so well for you. I don't think it's working for the university. I was learning how to be an administrator and rule by that influence. And he said, I think you ought to look for another job. I said, fine. While I was there, I learned that they were looking for a president at Wheeling College, which is the youngest of our Jesuit colleges. And so I applied for it, and they called me in for an interview. They had already interviewed about 10 different people. And I said, but this fits, because this fits Nepal. West Virginia is very much like Nepal. It's mountainous and it's poor. Well, I said both the right thing and the wrong thing. Why did I say the right thing and why did I say the wrong thing? The right thing I said is that is mountainous and the people are poor. The bad thing I said was it's like Nepal. After I finished the interview, one of the board members, Harry Ham, who was the editor of the newspaper, said, you did very, very well. And they had sent me out for a while, and they said, we want you to accept this job. And so, but can I give you some advice? Please, we have a symphony. Don't make us like Nepal.
So, what year would this be in at this point when you accepted that position?
Well, it would have been, I came back from Nepal, I guess it was 1970, 1982.
1982.
I accepted the job. By the way, I called up the provincial before I had the interview, and I said, I think I'm going to interview for this job at Wheeling Jesuit, or Wheeling then, at Wheeling. He said, by heavens, you are a learner. You come up and visit me. I visited him for only about a half an hour. I had to fly to Detroit to visit him, and he said, I'm going to tell you something. If they offer you the job, you must take it. I'm just telling you that. You've got to take it. They've been looking for someone. They haven't anyone. If they offer, take it. So I took it. And that's where I did. 1982. The university was in terrible condition. They had been losing people. They were down to probably about 750 students. The facilities had been run down. And they said, people said, he's coming in to close the university. Well, that's not what I was told. And so I decided, I don't want to close this, I want to build it up. And so it was a question of saying, here's where we are. How can we make it work? The first thing I did was I said to the chairman of the board who had just hired me, I need you to resign. I need a chairman who lives here that I can deal with. And so he said, no problem, I resign. Isn't that an interesting job? A new president asked the board chairman to resign.
That takes a lot of confidence on your part.
Well, I wanted to make it grow. And one of the men that was on the board was a Presbyterian man, very wonderful guy, a medical doctor, Dr. Hoffreiter. We just buried him. I just buried him this year. But he became my close friend. And I said, Don, Dr. Don, would you take on the chairmanship of this board? And he said, I like the way you act. Yes, I'll take it on. And so he took it on. And so we worked together for the first 10 years together at least.
Well, I think this might be a good place to pause and begin the next part of our discussion, because we're at the point where you have taken the job at Wheeling Jesuit and are getting established. And so we're going to pause here.